Hi everybody and welcome back. My name's Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today I'm going to teach you to read music in 3 easy steps. Now I just want to say before I go any further, this is my personal way of teaching music. I'm sure plenty of you have known other ways or your teacher has told you other ways to learn music. That's absolutely fine. It's all a means to an end. It all works. It's all the same. But this is just my personal way of teaching music. It's tried and tested. I've been doing this for many, many years. And if a student would come to me to have private lessons and they've never read a single note of music before, I can guarantee them that I will have them reading music in no problem within 2 to 3 months with the way that I do it. So I'm not inventing the wheel here. I'm just taking you through 3 easy steps to read music. It's so easy. If you can stick with it and you can do it, then you're not going to have any problems. So reading music isn't easy. I'm not going to lie to you. But you know, it's something that you have to do to be able to read music, and you don't really want to be writing the notes in all the time, because the one thing that stops people getting on with music and playing stuff either on the violin, the piano or any instrument is just not being able to read the notes fast enough. So once you can do that, you can train yourself and you can learn it. It's really very, very simple. Then you're not going to have a problem. If it was that complicated, then children as young as kind of 4 or 5 just wouldn't be able to do it. But they can, so it's not complicated. It's just kind of more of an irritation, really, something that you have to do. So anyway, I'm going to get straight into it. The 3 things that you will need first of all, and these are all in the description bar underneath. I've linked them all so you can click on them and you can print them out. You can print all the sheets out. So the first thing you'll need to print out is the rhyme sheet that you've got here. I'll explain in more detail. The second thing that you'll need to print out is just a plain piece of music. This was composed by my colleague Simon, and this is from our piano book. I'll put a link to that as well if you want to have a look at that. So this is a piece of music there. This is just a plain piece of music, and then you'll need to print out the answers as well. So it's the same piece of music, but I've written all the letters in so that when you come to putting them in, you can cross-reference against this and you won't be kind of fumbling around in the dark trying to work out whether you've got the right notes or not. So those are the 3 things that you need to print out. So once you've got them and you've printed out, we can get started. So the first thing that you need to do is to learn your rhymes, which is this sheet here, the first sheet I showed you. So I suppose I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail with this, but you have the treble clef and the bass clef. If you're doing the violin, by the way, or I suppose the flute, or I don't know, something like that, then you'll only need to know the treble clef. So only pay attention to the treble clef, so the top part. Don't look at the bottom part here. If you're trying to learn the piano, then you will need to look at the bottom part, so the bass clef. So the top ones, the treble clef, these are the right hand notes, and the bass clef, these are all the left hand notes. Now there's 2 places that notes can sit, and they are on the line. So where a note is, where a note is, or a line is going right the way through the note, I'll get my words right in a second, and in the spaces, so the notes are going in between the lines. And that's the same for the treble clef, for the bass clef as well. So on the lines and in the spaces. And I've put that all in there as well, so that you know. And basically, to make it easy for you, we work with mnemonics in music. So the notes on the spaces are E, G, B, D and F. We always start from the bottom and we always count up, never start from the top and count down, you know, as if you were picking something off the floor. You've got to pick it up off the floor first. You don't just pick it out of kind of midair. So we always start from the bottom. So how you're going to remember those is every good boy deserves football. Some people say every good boy deserves fruit. Some people say every good boy deserves faith. Whatever you want to say, it all works exactly the same. Now for the spaces for the treble clef, just simply spells face. So we just go with that. I think that's pretty much universal. I've never heard of any other rhymes for the spaces in the treble clef. And then moving down to the bass clef, unfortunately the bass clef notes are different to the treble clef. I'm not going to go into why, because it's probably going to open up a whole can of worms, but unfortunately they're different notes. So the notes on the bottom line in the treble clef isn't going to be the same as the bottom line in the bass clef. That's what makes the piano a little bit harder to play, because you've got the treble clef and the bass clef. But simply you've got on the lines and the bass clef G, B, D, F and A, and I do gate, bars, defend, farm, animals, and in the spaces I do all cows eat grass, so A, C, E, G. Again, you might know different mnemonics and that's absolutely fine. If you want to put them down in the comment bar underneath and suggestion, that's great. But the reason why I like these ones is because the top 2, every good boy deserves football and face, it involves a kind of boy, the face of a boy, so that's kind of easy to remember. And these ones, gate, bars, defend, farm, animals and all cows eat grass, they're easy to remember for me because they're both about animals. So what I don't want to do is get the 2 kind of, or the 4 rhymes mixed up. So once you've got the 4 rhymes that are here, you need to get that sheet imprinted into your head. And how I normally do that is by writing them onto the music at a desk. So take the music that you're playing or something that you're not playing, for example, take it to a desk, have the sheet to the side of you, and then get your pencil and using the sheet, start sort of writing them in. So if we were looking at the treble clef, you can just line them up if you really want to. So for example, this first one here, if you're looking at it, the very first note that you've got here, I know it's a G because it's sitting, so first of all, it's in the treble clef. So I know I'm going to be looking at the top part, Every Good Boy Deserves Football and F-A-C-E. And I've identified that it's sitting on a line and it's not in a space. So I'm going to be looking at these ones on the line. So I'm going to be looking at Every Good Boy Deserves Football. And then starting from the bottom line, I'm going to count my way up and stop until I get to where the note is. So the bottom line is an E, but it's not sitting on that one. The next line is a G, and it happens to be sitting on that one. So the first note is a G. Once you've done that, you can cross-reference it with the answer sheet that you've got here. So what I would suggest to you is that you just do the treble clef line or the top line first, and then move on to the bass clef. Try not to mix and do a bit of treble, a bit of bass, because you'll end up probably just getting the rhymes muddled up, and then that's not going to do you any good. So for example, the next note that you've got here, I've identified that that's in a space. So I'm going to be using these ones, the F-A-C-E ones, and I'm going to count from the bottom space, moving all the way up until I get to the note of where the space is sitting in. So the bottom space is an F, it's not in that one. The second space is an A, it's not in that one. The third space is a C, and it is in that one, so we know that's a C. And so on and so forth, and you carry on like that. So the second step to music is to write them into the music with no sheet. So you might just maybe want to do half of this, or actually there is a second page to this. There isn't very much, there's only 2 lines on the second page, but you might want to do, what have you got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you might want to do maybe three or so lines and then stop, so you don't do any more. So that was that. So do 3 lines for the first part, say, where you're actually referring to this all the time. And the second part to reading music is to write in the notes without looking at this sheet. So by the time you've done either the whole of this or the first 3 lines of this, you should really be starting to memorize these rhymes. And again, folks, they're not really difficult to remember. Just look at them and remember every good boy deserves foot, so every good boy, so you're kind of memorizing them. So they're not that difficult to memorize, to be honest with you. And I'm sure that once you've done sort of a whole page of this, you can even print this off twice if you want to, and do the whole of this by actually looking at the sheet, and then do the whole of this not looking at the sheet. And if you've still got the answer sheet as well, you can cross-reference both and mark yourself in a way. So that's the second part. The third part to reading music is to actually doing it the hard way and just to be working it out by sight. So by now you've been putting the notes in by looking at the sheet, by looking at the rhymes and everything and referring to that until you've memorized it. The second part is putting in the letters without looking at the sheet at all, so you're starting to memorize the 4 rhymes and everything. And the third part, if you can do parts 1 and 2, you can definitely do part 3. And the third part is where you're playing the piano and you're working them out as you go along. Now this is going to be excruciatingly, painfully slow, but it has to be done in order for you to learn the notes. And there's no other way that you're going to learn the notes than by just doing it at sight. If you can do step 1, and you can definitely do step 2, you can absolutely do step 3. Now step 3 is where most people fall down because they just can't be bothered to do it, and it's so much easier to write the notes in and start playing the piece. And yes, whilst that's true, you're only ever going to be able to play pieces that you've written the notes in. So you really, really must try and do step 3. And the more you can do step 3, which is playing at sight without writing anything in, the better you're going to be, and the quicker you're going to learn to read music, and then basically the quicker you can get on and start playing all the stuff that you really want to play. So instead of working it out and putting it in pencil, you're just working it out in your brain, and then you're just playing the note that's there, and then you move on to the next one, work out what that is. Every good boy deserves, oh, it's a B, and then you press the B, and so it's going to be really slow. But that's just the way it is, and everybody has to go through that. If you just want to try hands separately, that's probably a good idea to do. And obviously the violin, you're just doing the treble clef line anyway, so that's a lot easier. So there we go, folks. 3 simple, easy steps in about 10 minutes of how to read music. I know I've gone through this really quickly, but I mean, that really is all there is to explain, and that's it really. The rest of it is just down to you. So there we go, 3 easy steps to read music. I hope this has been helpful. Leave a comment in the bar underneath, and all the links are underneath as well for this, so you can print everything out completely free, and I'll see you all in the next video.